thing on? Alright. There's a story that Jordan Peterson often tells about a patient who tells a therapist that she hopes that this difficult situation she's in is all her fault. To which the therapist asks, why? And she responds, well, because if it's all my fault, then at least I can do something about it. I've always subscribed to this mindset of radical accountability. I never wanted to be a victim of my circumstances. And I would say that this determination has done me a lot of good in life, especially in my teenage years when I needed it the most. But at a certain point, radical accountability becomes self-destructive. Because without the radical love of God, everything just falls apart. Sometimes there's only so much responsibility that you can force yourself to take. At a certain point, radical accountability is merely a symptom of an inability to surrender to God. Because it's a lot easier to think, if I take responsibility for everything and blame myself for everything, then at least I can control what happens. But sometimes you can't. Sometimes it isn't all your fault. Sometimes it just isn't in your control. I've made a lot of mistakes. Mistakes that I've been forced to take accountability for. I watched a Bishop Barron video recently where he talked about the story of Jonah, and something that struck me was this idea that sometimes when you are not on the right path, God puts you through something difficult, something that might make you feel trapped and out of control, just like Jonah was in the belly of the beast. But ultimately, that sort of forces you back down the right path. And lately, I've been in the belly of my own beast that God sent to swallow me up and teach me some lessons that I desperately needed to learn. But even with all of the lessons that I've learned, I'm honestly still really struggling with the most important lesson that if I don't learn, it's going to keep me trapped in the belly of the beast forever. And that's to be able to truly surrender. Surrendering to God's will can be a bit of a paradox in the sense that it's really easy to feel at peace with leaving things up to God when things feel relatively in control. It's easy to surrender then. But when things feel really hopeless, when you can't see any light at the end of the tunnel, when things feel completely out of your control, well, that's when your surrender actually counts. Through the grace of God, I've grown to become relatively good at surrendering even in the most dire of circumstances, or at least much better than I was before. But still I really struggle with blaming myself. Sometimes even though you've grown, the consequences of your past actions still live on, and sometimes they're difficult to watch and not want to beat yourself up. It's difficult to watch and not fall back into the instinct of trying to blame yourself for everything so that it can at least feel more in control, that you can do something about it when it just isn't in your control anymore, and there isn't anything you can do about it. I've been following along with Hallow's Pray 40, and it's a beautifully crafted program, and I've been learning a lot about what it truly means to surrender through the story of Father Chiswick. And, well, that's my prayer for this Lent. Surrender.